Ever feel like you're just like drowning in information these days?
Totally. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Right. And it kind of feels like that's what got us thinking about this whole AI and truth thing in the first place, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's
Like, where do you even begin to sift through it all?
exactly. And the crazy part is the stuff we found for this deep dive. It's like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Seriously. But it's real. People are actually working on this stuff.
It's mind-blowing, honestly, this whole idea of an AI truth filter, this system that could actually analyze mountains of data and figure out what's true.
It's wild.
It's not some far-off fantasy anymore. People are building this right now.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're talking about like having a robot fact checker on speed dial.
Basically,
Yeah.
except way more powerful than anything we've ever seen.
And this is where it gets really interesting because one of the papers we dug into, this one by Lakeman, it argued that this kind of AI could, get this, rewrite history as we know it.
Yeah, no, that's a huge part of this.
Like, it could challenge assumptions that have been around for centuries, everything from historical narratives to, the stuff we see in advertising,
Absolutely. It really makes you think about how we define truth in the first place, right?
which is like a whole other rabbit hole.
Huge rabbit hole. And this is where it gets tricky. Because defining truth, it's not as easy as it sounds.
No kidding. One person's truth is another person's.
Exactly. But for AI to work, for it to sort fact from fiction, you need a starting point. Think about it like Euclid and his axioms in geometry.
Okay, you're going to have to refresh my memory on that one.
Sure, so Euclid, way back when, he came up with these basic truths about lines and angles, right? Like the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. These axioms, they form the foundation for everything else in geometry.
Right, got it.
AI needs something similar, a set of fundamental truths, a framework to start from.
So, like, just as we need to agree that, like, 2 plus 2 equals 4, AI needs its own truth starter kit, basically. That's fascinating, but also kind of scary when you think about it. What if those truths are wrong?
Oh, absolutely, and that's the million-dollar question, and how we determine this truth is so important.
Because a garbage in, garbage out situation with AI could be
A disaster. Think about it.
bad, yeah. So how do they propose to do this then? How do you even begin to teach AI about truth?
Well, the paper suggests ranking different information sources based on how likely they are to be true.
Okay, that makes sense. So what would be at the top of that list?
Science, most likely, because of its emphasis on things like peer review and trying to replicate results.
Right, so it has to go through all these checks and balances.
Exactly. So it's considered more reliable in terms of establishing truth.
Okay, so if science is at the top, what comes next?
Probably observations of the natural world, things we can directly observe and validate ourselves. We see the sun rise every morning. That's a pretty reliable truth.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So where do things start to get fuzzy? Where does the AI start squinting at the information?
Well, the paper points to areas like politically charged media, for example, advertising,
Right.
even some aspects of historical accounts.
Yeah, because history can be written by the victors and all that.
Exactly. These are areas where an AI truth filter would need to be particularly discerning because bias and manipulation can creep in much more easily.
And that's where it gets really interesting because if the AI is learning from all of this data, how do we make sure it's not inheriting all the biases and inaccuracies that already exist?
That is the million-dollar question. You're right. And it's something the source material definitely addresses. They use this term, recursive accuracy.
Recursive accuracy, what is that?
So it's this idea of the AI constantly double-checking its own work.
Okay.
Like it's got this built-in BS detector or something.
I like that built-in BS detector.
And it's evaluating the sources it's learning from, right? So if it starts to find inconsistencies or red flags, it can adjust its understanding.
Oh, that's cool. So it's like it's constantly learning and getting smarter.
Exactly. It's not just taking everything at face value.
That's pretty wild, honestly. But it still kind of comes back to that whole thing about the data itself, right? Like if it's munching on a data set full of biased information, isn't it just going to become this like supercharged echo chamber?
You're hitting on a huge GE point there, and the paper actually talks about this idea of diverse training data.
Okay, so the more perspectives you feed it.
The better, exactly. The more perspectives it's exposed to, the better equipped it'll be to identify and flag potential biases. It's like you and I might interpret a news story totally differently based on, our backgrounds, our experiences.
Right, totally.
Same goes for AI. The richer and more diverse the data it learns from, the more nuanced its understanding of truth will be.
That makes a lot of sense. But then it also makes me wonder, like, let's say we do crack the code on this whole truth filter thing. Are we even ready for that? like as humans?
Whoa, that's a good question.
Because what happens to our own critical thinking skills? Do we just become like passive consumers of whatever the AI spits out as truth?
That's the heart of the issue, isn't it? It's like this technology could be amazing, but it also forces us to ask some hard questions about ourselves.
Like, are we even willing to hear the answers?
Right. Like, are we willing to question our own biases when they're presented to us? Are we willing to, like, actually engage in respectful debate, even when it's uncomfortable?
Which, let's be honest, a lot of people aren't.
It's true. And, you know, even if this AI truth filter never actually happens, just thinking about these questions,
Yeah.
it's making us more aware of the information we consume and how we share it, which is huge.
That's a really good point. It's like we started this whole conversation talking about AI and truth, but it feels like we've stumbled onto something even bigger.
Totally. This isn't just about some futuristic technology. It's about like what it means to be human in this crazy age of information.
And the responsibility that comes with that?
Absolutely.
It's a lot.
It really is.
Yeah. So where does this all leave us? We went from talking about robot fact checkers to like some pretty heavy stuff about truth and responsibility and what it even means to be human in this day and age.
It's wild how this technology, even though it's still being developed, it's making us confront these questions head on, you know?
It really is. It's like looking in a mirror, but the mirror is analyzing you and telling you what it sees. Kind of creepy in a way.
Right. But I also think that's a good thing. Like, I'm not saying it's comfortable, but it's important.
Totally. So whether or not this AI truth filter actually becomes a reality is kind of beside the point.
In a way, yeah. The important thing is that we're thinking about this stuff, that we're being more critical of the information we consume and share, whether it's from some fancy algorithm or just our buddy on social media.
So we need to level up our own personal truth filter skills then.
100%. It means being more aware of our own biases, seeking out diverse perspectives, and being open to the possibility that, hey, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I'm wrong about something.
Which is a hard thing to admit sometimes, especially these days.
It's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
Especially with the way the internet can kind of trap you in your own little bubble.
Oh, tell me about it.
But I do think it's possible to break free, to be more discerning. And that's what makes me hopeful about all of this.
Okay, I feel you. So what you're saying is the future of truth isn't just about algorithms and artificial intelligence. It's about us, all of us, taking responsibility for the information we consume and share.
Exactly. The more we engage with these questions, the better equipped we'll be to handle whatever crazy new tech comes along next.
Love that. So it's not about surrendering to the machines. It's about empowering ourselves to be better truth seekers.
Perfectly said. And who knows, maybe we'll even learn a little something about ourselves along the way.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that about wraps up this deep dive into AI and the search for truth. Huge thanks to our expert for, well, being our guide in all of this. And to everyone listening, keep those truth filters running because who knows, maybe what you find will surprise you. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.